Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Hit the Pace Car. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, we would greatly appreciate a like, comment, follow, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. But this is Hit the Pace Car post Texas Motor Speedway, and honestly, a very pleasantly surprising weekend. Honestly, a great weekend of racing, which wasn't the expectation going into it. We had a great Truck Series race. I personally didn't really watch the O'Reilly Series race. Unfortunately, I was very busy moving my grandma out of Colorado, so I wasn't able to watch the O'Reilly Series race in its entirety. And unfortunately, it sounds like none of the boys ended up watching it this week. Busy lives. We had Tyler working. Cory had boot camp, I think. So very, very busy weekend for all of us. But we're going to try to talk about the O'Reilly race as much as we possibly can. And then, of course, we'll talk about the Cup Series race, which was surprisingly really good. Wasn't perfect, and we'll talk about how it was imperfect, but it was still a very entertaining race. But before we get started, of course, I have to introduce the Pacecar boys. I'm joined every week by the Pacecar boys of Cory and Tyler. Cory, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. My daily picks last week were first, and second. So I'm happy. I did good.
Yeah, that's a nice little plug right there, Cory. If you don't follow us already on the Pacecar Boys social media pages, whether that's on X, Instagram, or on TikTok, every week we make our race day picks. I put out a little graphic with our race day picks, and yeah, Cory was on hitting on all cylinders with his race day picks this weekend, and almost won every single one. You should have made some bets. You should have made a parlay bet on that or something, Cory, because that could have gotten you some good money potentially. And
I know the
Tyler,
first time I didn't.
the first time you didn't. That's just how that works. Sometimes it works. Of course, it's when you don't do it. That's why I ended up putting $1 on Kyle Busch because watch the one time I don't put money on Kyle Busch, he's gonna win, and that didn't work out. But we'll talk about Rowdy here in a little bit and my thoughts on everything that happened on Sunday with Rowdy Busch. But Tyler, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. Heading full steam into one of the best road course weekends of the year, for sure.
Yeah, it is Watkins Glen week. We have Watkins Glen International this weekend, and I know we have a very heavy hitting Truck Series race. I know we have Zilich out there. We have SVG in the Truck Series field. We have the Dinger racing for Ram this weekend and Colleague this weekend as well. So I'm looking forward to this weekend at Watkins Glen. It's always one of my favorite road courses. Even though with the Cup Series with this new generation car, it hasn't necessarily been the best at Watkins Glen, but I've been there twice when I was younger, so I really like Watkins Glen. I have a soft spot in my heart for that racetrack. But let's get into our stories from the day, of course, with our weekend rundown post Texas Motor Speedway. Of course, we'll start with the Craftsman Truck Series on Friday night, and honestly, there was a big threat of rain and thunderstorms throughout the day, but it just never really came. We ended up having a good race, not a good race, a great race without weather affecting it. Just overall very entertaining from start to finish. We had different players like Ben Rhodes had a great day. Of course, we had Caden Honeycutt, and it was his home track, threatening once again for his first win in his Truck Series career. Of course, we had Carson Hocevar go to victory lane, and we'll talk more about Hocevar and how we're feeling about that here in a moment. You had Kyle Busch out there, who overall had a good day, came on late even with his damage, had a tire advantage at the end of this race. Overall, just a very entertaining race from start to finish, and not very surprising for the Truck Series to put on a good show, but I guess a little bit surprising it being Texas. And all three races were really good this weekend, starting with the Truck Series. Tyler, do you have any thoughts really on the Truck Series race that we had on Friday night and everything we saw there?
And it was a great race. I mean, I really enjoyed all of it. There wasn't 1 minute of that race that I was sitting back being like, wow, this kind of sucks. Which is rare, I feel like, for Texas, but it was a good race. Damn good race.
Yeah, I feel like it's rare for Texas. We don't usually see a great show there. That's why we were talking about it last week. Yeah, it doesn't have a good race, that great of a race in the Cup Series, but it's a track issue, not necessarily a car issue. Because when we have the Truck Series and the O'Reilly Series there. There's definitely moments. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not moments throughout the race, but usually compared to the other races on the schedule for both those series, Texas is on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to entertainment, I would say. But Cory, what were your thoughts on the Truck Series race that we had on Friday night?
I think the truck race was my favorite race of the weekend. I think it was entertaining throughout, like Tyler said. I think it was awesome to see Carson Hocevar go back to back with the Cup Series win last week and the Truck Series win this week, and see him do that burnout again. It was awesome. Like fully enjoyed that race.
Yeah, I thought it was a great race. It always puts on a good show. I had to watch the end of the race heading to the airport on my phone, and overall, I was just very entertained by the race, just start to finish. I love that Kyle Busch was in the mix. Obviously, he couldn't get the job done, but Hocevar, his best friend, ended up getting the job done. So congratulations to Carson Hocevar. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. What were your thoughts on the race as a whole? But that will let us move straight into our winning topic, and that is Carson Hocevar gets another win. He gets another win in the Craftsman Truck Series, driving the Intimidante Chili's Chevrolet Silverado for Spire Motorsports and then number 77. And everything's been coming up Hocevar these last couple of weeks. Obviously, he got his win at Talladega. He got the pole at Texas this past weekend. He got a top 10 in the Cup Series. He won this race. He was at the Met Gala, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Had a fantastic celebration. Once again, he decided to stick his body out of the car. This time we're doing donuts. I would like to warn Hocevar, be very careful, because Kyle Busch did that. He did that because that used to be Kyle Busch's. He tried to make that his celebration for a little bit. He tried to attach it to his bow, and one time he almost went flying out of the car when he was doing the donuts, and he didn't do it again after that. So Hocevar, if you're going to do that, be careful. And I don't think he should probably be doing that during donuts or burnouts and stuff like that. But that's just my opinion. I just don't want him to get hurt. Connor Zilic, once again, don't attempt it. Don't do it. Connor Zilic, if you're listening, don't do it. Please don't do it. But I'm gonna send it to the. At this point, I would consider him a Carson Hocevar super fan. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Hocevar just getting another win, and overall just what we've seen from Hocevar over these last like 2 weeks? It's just everything's coming up Hocevar. This is his time to shine.
I mean, it really just goes to show, not even on his part, but the Tyler Reddick situation, how all that plays out. Sometimes when people get hot, man, they get hot. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, it just turns into winner after winner after winner, and that's what he's got going on for him. I mean, he needs this for sure. Spire Motorsports needs this. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's more fitting and capable to handle the pressure and the excitement on him right now. So, I mean, it's exciting to watch. The dude's killing it. He's got some crazy celebrations every time. I really hope everything works out for him and it doesn't become something that he's got to change, because he is talked about everywhere right now, and we need this as a sport.
I would agree. We definitely need this as a sport. And I want him to keep on doing that celebration. I would just be weary about him doing it when he's doing donuts or stuff like that. Because like I said, Kyle Busch tried it a couple of times. He did it successfully a couple of times. Then he got just too confident with it and almost went flying out of his race car. And then it just scared him, and he never did it again. So hopefully he's just able to do it in a safe manner. I'm still surprised that NASCAR is letting him do it. But also watching this race really made me want Kyle Busch to go to Spire that much more, because he had a great race overall, had great speed, and he was competing with Hocevar, which says that it's not 100% him. It's obviously a lot on RCR in the Cup Series, but that's a different discussion. But Cory, what were your thoughts on Host? You kind of gave your thoughts a little bit already, but maybe expand on those thoughts. What do you think about Carson Hocevar's last 2 weeks, getting the win at Dega, now winning the Truck Series at Texas, getting the pole for the Texas Cup Series race, overall having a good day on Sunday? Everything is turning up Hocevar. What are your thoughts on all that?
It's awesome. I mean, I was telling Sparky the other day, I was like, it's like seeing a super fan drive a race car and win races, because he loves the sport with his whole heart. And seeing him do those burnouts is awesome, because you never see a personality. You haven't seen a personality out of NASCAR in a while, and seeing him do those burnouts in his way is awesome. I agree with you though. When he's doing it like in a donut or like doing the burnouts like that, like hope he thinks about safety first doing it, but like getting out while he's against the wall doing a burnout and sitting on top of the car or sitting on the side of the car, like that's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
different.
But
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
I hope he I hope he continues doing it though. It's awesome. I hope he stays consistent. We see him win more often because we need it. Like the personality, we need it.
No, yeah, like I said with Tyler, I do hope that he continues to do it. I think it's a great celebration. It definitely helps bring eyes. It also makes him stand out. It's not just your normal getting out of the car, standing on top of the car, standing on the window, and just putting your arms up like, yeah, I won. I feel like the best drivers in NASCAR history, not all of them, but I feel like a good amount of them have their own sort of celebration. Like even though I'm not a big fan of them, like I like Logano's celebration with the wheel. Obviously, Kyle Busch doing the bow, Tony Stewart with the fence climb. There's some of these very notable celebrations in NASCAR history, and Hocevar is making this his own. I just want him to be a little bit more cautious and safe about it, because yeah, he's a big guy, and when Kyle Busch almost fell out of the car, he had his helmet on. Hocevar wants to take his helmet off for these things, so I just hope he's very careful because, yeah, we can't have him getting hurt. He's not Connor Zilic. If he was Connor Zilic, he probably would have already gotten hurt. So he just needs to be careful. He just needs to be very, very careful. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Truck Series race and Carson Hocevar? Everything's just turning up Hocevar right now. He even got mentioned on Pat McAfee today. That was the opening story to today was Hocevar and Kyle Busch and Hocevar at the Met Gala. So everything's really turning up Carson Hocevar right now. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Now to get to our O'Reilly series discussion. As I said at the beginning of the show, and I don't think this has ever happened in the history of the show, at least one of us always ends up watching the race. Usually all three of us end up watching every single race, but we all ended up having other arrangements on Saturday. I was able to catch the last 20 laps in whole. I think we all took a look at the highlights to a certain degree and saw clips about the race, but to be honest, none of us watch the O'Reilly Series race in its entirety, unfortunately. So maybe we're not the greatest judges of this race. So don't hold everything we say to us forever, I would say, because yeah, we didn't watch the race in its entirety. So I thought we'd be honest about that up front here, that none of us watched the entire O'Reilly Series race. But from everything I've seen on X, from the highlights I've seen, from the finish that we had, it was a fantastic race. It seemed like I saw the 3 wide through the corner with all the contact made in the corner. I think that was what Zilic and Larson and Allgaier or something like that. Or no, maybe it was Cruz. No matter, doesn't matter. We saw great racing over there. Corey Day ended up wrecking himself early in this race. We saw some contact between Sawallich and Carson Quaffle and Taylor Gray. That was a big accident on lap number 1. We saw great racing throughout the day. Once again, Parker Retzloff, I feel like we talk about him almost every week. Just fantastic race. Once again, gets a top 5. I can't say enough about Parker Retzloff. That kid impresses me so much. Get him in a better race car immediately. And Viking's not a bad race team. With Alfredo doing as well as he's been doing as well, I don't think Viking's a bad race team. Parker Retzloff just outperforms whatever equipment he's in. So good job on Parker Retzloff, and just overall a very, very good race from what I hear. I want to get the boys' thoughts on this, and we'll talk about the finish here in a second. Tyler, I know you didn't see the race in its entirety. I know you've seen a couple of clips, and I know you've seen the word of mouth a little bit. What were your thoughts on the O'Reilly Series race that we had on Saturday for Texas?
From what I seen, it seemed a little messy. Like I didn't, like you said, I didn't get to see it in its entirety, but it just seemed a little messy. It seemed like everybody wasn't on their top of their game. A lot of unnecessary wrecks, things like that. So I don't know. I wish Justin would figure out Texas. That's for sure. The man's right there every time, and it's like almost like he's too nice, and he's just never gonna get it done. I don't know what it is about Texas, but I really wish he'd get it done.
Yeah, I wish he'd get it done as well. But he was right there. He was right there. But it's hard, Tyler. It's hard to win when you're racing Kyle Larson, though. To be fair, yeah, wouldn't you think?
It's absolutely hard to win when you're racing Kyle Larson, but still, I mean, if he would just race Kyle like Kyle races everybody else, he would have had that race. He's just too nice, man. He's too nice.
Yeah, and apparently, from what I hear, that Larson got kind of upset because Allgaier pushed him up into the marbles under the caution or something like that, dirtying up his tires. I don't know what to say about that. If it was during the race, I would have a lot to say about that because Larson does that every week to somebody. But under caution, I think you're just finding something to complain about at that point, in my opinion. And they were racing hard. They were racing hard from what I've seen from the highlights at the end of the race. At one point, I thought they were going to wreck each other at the end of this race. Just they were racing each other very hard, like they weren't teammates. But I guess they technically aren't. But during that race, they are. They are teammates during the race. Cory, like I said with Tyler, I know you didn't see the entire race, but I also know that you watched the whole 30-minute highlight YouTube video or whatever the case may be. How did you feel about the race as a whole? And we'll talk about the finish here in a second.
It looked entertaining. I mean, it looked like the guys that you thought would be up front would be up front, like Connor Zilic, Kyle Larson, Justin Allgaier. They were up front for most of the race. Something happened to Connor Zilic to where he didn't get the finish he deserved, but the race in itself looked great. I mean, you had some crashes that were, unexpected. I feel like it was the cars that normally don't wreck that caused the wreck with Taylor Gray and Sawalich and all them. But no, but the race looked really good. And honestly, as a Larson fan, I'm happy with the result. Justin Allgaier is too nice, but Allgaier is also dominating the series right now, and another win would just make that even worse. So, I mean, all in all, the race was great. Like you said, Parker Retzloff got in top 5. Brent Cruz won 100K.
Yeah.
Sam Mayer finally got a good finish. It's been like a while since he's gotten to top 5, I think, but third. The race was great.
Well, let us know your thoughts about the O'Reilly Series race on Saturday. You all in the comments probably watched more of the race than we did, but let us know your thoughts in the comments about the O'Reilly Series race. What did you think about it? And now we'll get into the actual winner of this race, and that was Kyle Larson holding off Justin Allgaier. Lil Gator was charging at the end of this race. I heard the radio transmission between Allgaier and his crew chief. Say I forget exactly what he said, but it said pretty much said Gator go get him or something like I can't remember exactly what it was said, but it kind of had that like here kitty 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 sort of vibes, and Allgaier just couldn't get it. He couldn't get the job done. Larson was just a little bit too strong, and Allgaier needed to run perfect laps at the end of this race to get around Larson and make the win happen, and just wasn't able to make it happen. And Larson got the job done. But because Tyler was just talking about Allgaier here a second ago, and I'm going to send it to Tyler here in a second. He was just talking about Allgaier here in a second ago, but how he has to figure out Texas. But overall, I think he has Texas figured out. I think it's always going to be tough to beat Larson at most tracks, especially a track like Texas where he's phenomenal. He's always done really well in the Cup Series there at Texas. He's led, I think, over 600 laps at this point at Texas in his career. He's very strong at the racetrack. But Tyler, what did you think about the end of this race? Allgaier just couldn't quite get the job done.
I mean, to a degree, he's got it figured out, right? But there's something about him that when he's at the end, he just is too nice, and he's done this time and time and time and time again. Texas, you have to be aggressive. That's why Kyle Larson's so good about it. Like, I don't know if Justin has aggressive enough bones in his body to get that win. As much as I want him to get that Texas win, I just don't know if it's ever going to come for him.
Yeah, it's a question to definitely be had. And with it being a better race this time around, overall a better weekend, I would expect even more Cup guys in the field in next year's event. So it's just going to continue to be difficult for him, especially with drivers like Brent Cruz and these younger guys beginning to figure it out. So it's going to be continuously difficult for him to probably win that race. But Allgaier is having a phenomenal season, so I don't think there's really too much to complain about. Second place isn't bad. Second place isn't bad, especially when you're losing to Kyle Larson. But Cory, how did we feel about the end of this race? Larson able to hold off Lil Gator.
As a Larson fan, I'm happy Larson won a race. And I mean, I'm used to Sundays. He hasn't won in a year, so I'm happy he got something done. But yeah, I agree with what Tyler's saying. I think Justin Allgaier could have easily won that race if he was more aggressive or raced Larson the way Larson typically races other people. Um, I don't know if it's just like the experience or the fact that it's a cup driver or just knowing it's Larson as a teammate that held his aggression back, but I think that was Allgaier's race to lose. Even though he was in second place, it's easier to manipulate the car in front of you on Saturdays in the O'Reilly series than it is like on Sunday. So, but yeah, Allgaier dominated that race, and I think Larson pretty much stole it.
Yeah, I think Allgaier could have won the race if he was a little bit more aggressive. And I've seen just a lot of drivers over time that just they don't have an aggressive bone in their body. And Allgaier, I think, has shown aggression from time to time, but not. I don't think it has anything to do with him being a cup driver or a teammate or anything like that. Because we saw contact, we saw apparently Allgaier put Larson up in the marbles in one of the corners under the yellow flag to dirty his tires and stuff like that. So I just really think he's not an aggressive race car driver. He doesn't want to risk wrecking his car. Anytime one of these moments come up, I always compare it to Martin Truex Jr. because Martin Truex Jr. is a hell of a race car driver, but he probably could have won 10 or 20 more races if he was an aggressive race car driver, but he just isn't. He has too much respect. And that's kind of how Allgaier is too. He just has too much respect. He wants to race people the way he wants to be raced, and he tried to get the job done in the cleanest way possible. When we all know if the shoe was on the other foot with Larson, Larson would have pushed Allgaier up into the marbles, and there wouldn't have been a caution flag. You would have put Allgaier up into the marbles, and Allgaier probably would have smacked the wall. That's where Denny Hamlin learned that from, and we see that from a couple of different drivers, especially at a track like Texas, where it's pretty much impossible to run on the high lane, whether you're in 1 and 2 or in 3 and 4. It's very difficult to run on the top portion of the racetrack. So I do think we would have saw that if the shoe was on the other foot. But Allgaier just couldn't get the job done, and Larson gets a win. I know the Larson fans are very hungry for a Cup Series win, but an O'Reilly Series win at least has to do something. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the finish of this O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race at Texas? All right. Let's get into the Cup Series race discussion, a race we actually did all watch. And I think all of us were pleasantly surprised with how good this race was. It definitely wasn't a perfect race. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a perfect race because it wasn't. There's definitely issues. But on a Texas scale of entertainment, this race was phenomenal. It was a 10 out of 10. When we're comparing it to other Texas races, it's a 10 out of 10. On the general scale for all races throughout the NASCAR season, I would say it was a good race. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a great race, but overall it was a good race. We saw some passing, could have seen more. We saw some tire fall off, probably should have had more. I think that'd probably be my biggest complaint was not a lot of tire fall off because track position once again was king, as it usually is with the next gen era, but it was definitely king in this race. But that's just me kind of nitpicking. Other than that, a very entertaining race. And we'll talk, of course, about all the drama with Rowdy and the Ryan Preece stuff and Elliott winning. But overall, just a very entertaining race from start to finish. Pleasantly surprised by the weekend as a whole. Just a great weekend at Texas Motor Speedway, which I didn't think I would have said. Cory, what were your thoughts on the Cup Series race that we had on Sunday?
I think stage 1 and stage 2 were awesome. I think stage 1 and stage 2 is hard not to keep watching it, and the passing, the momentum you could use to pass, like everything was great about stage 1 and stage 2. I think in stage 3, everyone got a little better. Everyone got close to the same pace, and it was a lot harder to pass. And I think if there was more tire wear, it would have been a better stage 3 and a better race in general. Not saying it was a bad race, just saying in the future it can be a little better in stage 3. But for compared to old or other Texas races, it was fantastic. It was entertaining. It was really entertaining compared to the old races at Texas, and I'm happy about it. Hopefully, they figure out a little bit to make it better next time.
Hopefully this becomes the new norm for Texas Motor Speedway. Obviously, I still think the track is a travesty, mainly because you can't use like 2/3 of turns 1 and 2, and then the very high lane in 3 and 4 isn't really usable either. Pretty much the whole top section of 3 and 4 isn't really usable. And I think I'm always going to complain about that, whether we get good racing or bad racing, because if you have that wide of a racetrack and you can't use half of it, what is the point? But other than that, like I said, a very good race, very entertaining. I'm always going to complain about the track, unfortunately. But Tyler, how did we overall feel about the race we had at Texas this past weekend?
It was a good race. I think right now NASCAR as a whole is stepping up and it's causing a lot of teams to cause a lot of stupid little mistakes, and that's what we need. It sounds crazy, but the more pressure on these teams, the less it's just this is another weekend, let's do it the same way we've always done, is better. So the pressure seems to be adding up, and I think it's creating better racing for us as a whole. I mean, yeah, there was no passing. There's a lot of stupid things like no tire fall off that we're still dealing with, absolutely. But as a whole, the teams are making more mistakes. Bigger incidents are happening. It's all becoming more enjoyable to watch with everybody stepping up. So, great racing this weekend. Overall, great racing, and I don't think anybody expected what we got out of Texas.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card that it was going to be a good race. I even looked at the "Was it a good race" poll by Jeff Gluck, and it was over 70% saying yes, which is pretty cool for Texas. So congratulations to Texas Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, aka SMI, and Marcus Smith and everybody over there. Finally having a good race at Texas in the Cup Series. First time you could say that ever since they reconfigured it and repaved the racetrack, in my opinion. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Cup Series race at Texas as a whole? All right, let's get into our big stories from the race. We'll talk about Elliott and Denny at the end of that race here in a minute. But I do want to start with Rowdy talk, and then, of course, we'll get into the incident he had with John Hunter, and we'll also compare that to what had happened with Ryan Preece and Baby Gibbs, Ty Gibbs, here in a moment. But Rowdy looked like it was going to be a great day. Started up near the front of the field, was running top 5, top 10 the entire race. Texas is one of his best racetracks. He's won there 4 times. RCR always seemed to have good speed there. One of the few tracks where RCR tend to have really good speed. It's one of Austin Dillon's best racetracks as well. And Kyle Busch had a fantastic day, but I think everybody, when it comes to Kyle Busch, is just talking about the way that race ended with John Hunter Nemechek, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But everybody's also talking about the radio transmission he had with Carson Hocevar. It even got talked about on Pat. That's how Pat McAfee got open today on the Pat McAfee show. I watch the Pat McAfee show every day, and that's pretty much how they opened the show, was talking about how Rowdy was getting a little rowdy. And he was. Rowdy was getting rowdy on the radio. He was getting all pissed off. It already seems like him and his crew chief are already butting heads. Him and Andy Street sounds like they're already butting heads. It sounded like on the radio, asking if he's a psych major and everything. This disappoints me. Kyle Busch is just, and I've said this before a couple of times, I think he's just mad at the world right now. Things aren't really turning out the way he wants. He's not used to not winning, especially the way he's not winning. It's not like he's finishing like 5th or 7th or 8th every week. He's finishing like 21st or 29th or 30th every week right now. He's not at all competitive. And of course, the one time he is really competitive, he kind of throws it away at the end of this thing. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I kind of want to get the Pacecar boys' opinion just on Kyle Busch's attitude right now with NASCAR and his attitude on life. Because I don't think this is necessarily just Kyle Busch's attitude on NASCAR. I just really think his whole life is kind of turned upside down right now, because NASCAR racing is his life. NASCAR is his life, and he's not winning. It's weird to not see him winning, and he's not even really competitive. And I think he was really mad during this race, especially since he knew he had a competitive race car and he wasn't winning. So it's in his mind, finally I have a competitive race car, but things aren't turning out my way. Tyler, what are your thoughts on all this? I don't know if you actually heard the whole transmission, but he kind of went off on Hocevar and then went off on his crew chief and just kind of handled his business from there on out. How do we feel about all this?
I mean, it's Kyle Busch. It's the reason why Hendrick let him go. It's part of the reason why he's always had issues when he does. Like, it's Kyle Busch, and it's upsetting because he's not competitive at all. Like you said, he's not even getting top 15s at this point. I think this is the
No.
first time he's got a top 10 or top 15 all year long.
He didn't
So,
finish there, though.
no, but it's the closest he's been to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's insanely frustrating for the man because he's damn good and we all know it. I mean, he still has the talent. He showed that on Friday night in the truck race. So if RCR is really that bad off, man, holy shit. What has gone wrong over there? Because that is insanely disappointing on what this man's going through. But at the same time, he's Kyle Busch and he's never held disappointment well. He's never done well with any of these situations. So it's a fire burning against a fire, and it's just not doing well for anybody.
I like the way you kind of described it there, a fire burning against a fire. It's more like if you threw a Molotov at a propane tank. I think that's probably a good way to describe it right now, because he's just not he's just not there in the head, I would say, almost right now. He's just pissed off. And you see him with the media, you see him with his interviews every week. He's just not really happy during his interviews. Anytime he's asked about racing, anytime he's asked about things that are non-racing, he seems to have an okay attitude about it. But anything racing wise, he's pissy. He's just pissy all the time, in my opinion, right now, which is not surprising. I've been a Kyle Busch fan my whole entire life, but it's growing a little old right now. I'm getting a little upset about it myself personally. But Cory, how do we feel about? I assume you heard his radio transmission, him talking about Hocevar and him getting at his crew chief a little bit. And how do we overall just feel about? We'll talk about the incident with John Hunter here in a second, but how do we overall feel about his just attitude on the sport right now?
I mean, it's hard. It's kind of like Tyler said. It's Kyle Busch, man. He's always been angry. He finished second, and he'd like vent and get mad. Oh, I can't finish well here for some reason. We can never get the job done. Like, I remember having interviews like that when he finished second or finished third. Like, he gets mad. He used to be in the best equipment and be pissed when he didn't win.
Yeah.
Now it's really bad equipment, and he can't get a top 10. So there's no reason to be happy at all for him when it comes to racing. Like, I get his anger, and I know from him, he doesn't believe it's his fault. And honestly, as fans, we can kind of agree, because like, he's not competitive any week, and it's not like Austin Dillon is either. So I don't know. And then with this week, like, what happened on the track, you could tell part of it was his temper on the radio was crazy, but that's always been Kyle Busch. I just, like Tyler said, a fire against a fire. He's already an angry person in the car, and now, not going to say he has no purpose in the car because they're not competitive, but the one time he actually has a good car that's a top 10, top 15 car, he gets into an incident with a lap and a half to go, and that would have been another match into the fire, dude, because I would have lost it too, going that long and then losing a good finish on the last lap.
Yeah, it's just disappointing to watch, because as a Rowdy fan and as a Bobby Labonte fan, I saw both of them kind of just fall off near the end of their careers. And I wouldn't say Kyle Busch is done. I do think he's going to get another win, maybe even a couple more wins in his Cup Series career, because I don't think he's going to be racing at RCR at the end next season. Even though I did see what he said, and apparently had a big meetings talking about his commitment to RCR and to improving the race team and stuff like that. I really think that's just to make people feel better. I really think that's all that was. I do still think that he is leaving RCR at the end of the year, but it's two opposite ends of the spectrum for the way they handled themselves going out. Like Bobby Labonte always held himself with class and just was always a real good guy. Kyle Busch is just kind of doing everything the opposite right now. He's just he's screaming and crying on his way down right now, and it's tough to watch. It's a tough watch. And then I click on some of these TikToks and Instagram videos especially of the radio transmission. And like the top comments are like, "Oh, it's time for Kyle Busch to retire. It's time to hang it up, bud." And that's all I'm seeing. And that's just, it's tough. It's really tough to watch as being a Kyle Busch fan for over 20 years. It's very tough to watch. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How are you feeling about Kyle Busch's attitude on the sport right now? Which leads us into the incident that Cory was just kind of talking about here a second ago. At the end of this race, he just flat out wrecked John Hunter Nemechek. I know with the SMT data and all that stuff, you can't 100% determine that it was an intentional wreck. Kyle Busch has intentionally wrecked people at Texas before. I'll always remember when he took out Ron Hornaday in pretty much the exact same spot in a very similar fashion as John Hunter. Obviously, it was a lot more egregious with Ron Hornaday because he just went flying up the racetrack and clearly turned right into Ron Hornaday. I think he probably learned his lesson on that one. And this time just kind of made it look like he slid up the racetrack and pushed Nemechek up into the wall and took him out. I thought it was 100% intentional what he did. But at the same time, with all the data and all that information, you can't 100% prove that. You can't prove that he did that. But me knowing Kyle Busch and the way he is and the way he races, he wrecked John Hunter Nemechek on purpose at the end of this race. And we'll talk about Ryan Preece's incident with Ty Gibbs here in a second, because I do think it's very similar things, but two different sides of the same coin, if you will. And yeah, Kyle Busch just flat out took John Hunter Nemechek. I think it was just the built-up frustration and anger from the entire day. But Kyle Busch threw away a potential top 10, top 15 finish. Ended up finishing, I think, 20th or 21st in this race because of it. And you can't be doing that. He threw away a very, very good finish. It would have been his best finish of the season. Probably would have been, I think it would have been the best finish for RCR all season as well. And he just flat out threw it away. I'm a Kyle Busch fan, and I've been a Kyle Busch fan for the last 20 years, and I will continue to be a Kyle Busch fan, but my fandom is definitely dwindling a little bit right now. Like, I don't feel the passion and the love I have for Kyle Busch as much, right? Like, this is the least love, passion I've had for Kyle Busch ever throughout his whole entire career. Even after he wrecked Ron Hornaday, like I just mentioned not too long ago. Like, even when he did that, like me, I forget how old I was. I think I was like 13 or something when that happened. But when I saw that, I'm like, Ron Hornaday deserved that. That's what I was saying when that happened. Like, I've always been very defensive about Kyle Busch, and I always defend him. But I can't anymore, because he has such a horrible attitude on life. He has a horrible attitude on the sport right now. He's wrecking guys at this point. He's just going AWOL, because he's always gone off on the radio. He's always gotten mad on the radio. But right now, it's usually like, shut the fuck up. Let me do my driving. Let me do my thing. That's usually kind of his thing on the radio, and that's where he gets really mad. But it's almost getting personal on the radio at this point. Like, he's just mad all the time. And the way this race ended, he just threw away a halfway. Obviously, it wasn't the finish he probably wanted or maybe even deserved, but he threw it away to get revenge on John Hunter Nemechek. Who cares? Like, no offense to John Hunter Nemechek. I have nothing against John Hunter Nemechek, but who cares? It's John Hunter Nemechek. Like, who cares? I'm getting frustrated about it. It was clearly intentional. He's not going to get fined. He's not going to get suspended for it, nor probably should he, because you can't 100% prove that he did it. When you look at the data and you look at the camera angles and everything, you put all that together, you could say that he probably did it intentionally, but you can't. It's not a conclusion that everybody came to, because it's not for sure, because of you comparing all the data and stuff, which is a little different from the Ryan Preece incident with Ty Gibbs, which we'll talk more about here in a second, because we're going to kind of compare those a little bit. But I'll get to the Pacecar boys on this one before I keep on ranting and say something I probably regret about Rowdy. But Tyler, how did we feel about just Rowdy throwing away the end of this race, in my opinion?
And there's not much more to say. I think you covered it all. It's depressing to watch, and he really just needs to get it under control.
At this point, I want him to go to counseling. Like, at this point, I want him to do counseling or something, because he finally had a decent run. He just threw it away. He just threw it away, and it's disappointing to watch. He's like I said before, when Bobby Labonte was beginning to fall off, he handled everything with class, very classy guy, and just did all the right things, and tried his best to get better. Kyle Busch, while he's going down, he's just kind of kicking and screaming while he's going down right now, and he's making it worse. It's like when you're in quicksand. When you're in quicksand, the more you struggle, the more you're going to sink. And that's kind of what Kyle Busch is doing right now. The more he struggles and the more he kicks and screams, the more he's sinking below the quicksand. And I fucking hate to see it. I hate to see it. He's my favorite driver, and it's tough. It's really tough for Rowdy Nation as a whole right now. But Cory, how did we feel about Rowdy essentially throwing away his halfway decent finish at the end of this race?
I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a positive and say that he was running top 10 for the majority of the race. He was running in the top 10.
Yeah, he was.
We need to not forget that. And he would have had a top 15 finish if there wasn't a racing incident with a lap and a half to go. I think he was going to finish 20th or 18th or whatever without debatably right hooking or running into John Hunter Nemechek, because what happened on the backstretch, he was going to get passed by 3 or 4 cars anyways.
Yeah.
So without that racing incident, we're going into it, oh, wait, maybe this team has momentum, right? So I'm going to choose to focus on that and be hopeful for Kyle, because it's a 50-50 to me on whose fault that is. I think obviously it's more 60-40, 60 Kyle's fault, 40 John Hunter Nemechek, because Nemechek doesn't need to run against the wall. The spotter just needs to say he's there, but I understand why Kyle thought he'd be closer to the wall, because everyone else ran that line. And then that lap, Kyle got in front of him and hit the wall off of John Hunter Nemechek's bumper. So, I don't know. I'm going to focus on the good thing that he had a competitive car, and hopefully they figure it out.
Yeah, I hope they figured it out. And I'll have to disagree with you a little bit on the back straightaway incident, because it looked like to me Nemechek just came off the wall and hooked Rowdy. I don't think he was trying to do it on purpose, though. I don't think it was anything intentional. I think he just misjudged it, and it's the end of the race, and he ended up hooking Rowdy into the wall, and Rowdy would have lost a couple of spots in 3 and 4 anyways, but he was just seeing red in the moment and just took him out. Just flat out took him out, and Rowdy Busch has enough experience, not just racing, but he has enough experience taking guys out, wrecking drivers, moving them out of the way. He has enough experience with that sort of stuff that he knows how to do it in a way where it doesn't seem intentional. You can all think that it is intentional, and I even, and this, I'm a Rowdy fan, I'm positive he did it intentionally for sure, but you can't prove that, and it's a little bit different from the Ryan Preece incident, which we're about to move into here in a second. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about Kyle Busch's incident with John Hunter Nemechek? Do you think he should be fined for it? Any issues there for you on that? And overall, just how did we feel about the back and forth between John Hunter in these last 2 laps? All right, let's move to the other side of the coin, as I was just talking about with Ryan Preece, because Ryan Preece had a similar incident, I would say, with Ty Gibbs, where he was very upset with Ty Gibbs, and he came over the radio pretty much saying that he's going to take him out, and I don't think he meant to wreck him, and he even said that in his post-race interview, that he didn't mean to, essentially, but he did. He took him out, and he said that he was going to do it, and he did it. He took him out. He took out Ty Gibbs, and he got fined. He got fined today for the incident. Probably is going to be on some sort of probation, I would assume, as well, for a potential suspension down the line if he does this again. And I'm very mixed about it. I'm very mixed about Ryan Preece getting the penalty for this. I think a lot of people are probably upset about it because Kyle Busch didn't get penalized and Ryan Preece did. I think the big difference here is, we all know, well, not all of us know, but most of us at least think that Kyle Busch wrecked John Hunter Nemechek intentionally, but you can't prove that. You can't 100% prove that he did it intentionally. Ryan Preece, you can. You can prove that he did it. He did that. He might have not intentionally wrecked him, but he definitely meant to do something, and it ended Ty Gibbs' day. I think he ended up being out of the race after that incident, and he ended up taking him out, and he got fined for it. So, like I said, I'm very mixed about it, because personally, what we saw back in the day, I'd prefer, where drivers would get into the back of other drivers. There would be beef, there would be rivalries, there would be wrecks and stuff like that. I personally don't think we should be seeing fines or probations or suspensions. I think the only time we should be doing that if it's in a clearly dangerous situation, like right hooking somebody into the wall at a pretty fast racetrack. That would be something I would consider to be something that should be at bar minimum fined, maybe even suspended, depending on the circumstances. That's how I would personally do it. But the way that NASCAR have been judging this and the way their rules have been structured, whatever rules it is, they seem to change every couple of weeks. I'm okay with it because the way the rules are structured and the way everything has been moderated when it comes to these sort of incidents, I think the punishment fits the crime in that state. But I don't want that punishment to be the thing. It's just that's the standard that they've set. So unless they want to change the rules for the 20 millionth time, that's just what it is. Ryan Preece deserves what he got, in my opinion, and Kyle Busch deserved to not get anything. I know that's probably going to ruffle feathers, but Ryan Preece definitely deserved a fine, and Kyle Busch didn't because you can't prove that Kyle Busch did it intentionally, even though we all do think that he did. Ryan Preece, we know that he did. We know that he did because he said that he was going to do that. So that's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. But I want to get the Pacecar boys' thoughts on this one. I'm very interested on Cory. Cory, what were your thoughts on the Ryan Preece incident, and how would you compare it to the Kyle Busch incident?
I was hoping that it wouldn't result in a fine or a suspension or a point hit or anything like that. I was hoping that with, the new CEO that we not, penalize this type of stuff, because I think we all agree that if Kyle Busch didn't get a penalty, then Ryan Preece shouldn't have got a penalty, and like comparing the two. Um, but I don't know, man. Back in the day, they were allowed to settle things on the track. I know it's dangerous. Obviously, there needs to be a fine line, like right hooking, like you said. But like, how or else are they gonna let people get away? Like, so you can only go so long with people getting away with driving against you recklessly and
Yeah.
too aggressive and stuff like that without you taking some revenge in a way. And that's what NASCAR was built off of. Not like the revenge, so to say, but like the the letting people take out their aggression on the track. And like Ryan Preece said, he didn't mean to wreck him, but that's NASCAR, dude. If you're gonna race me like that, I'm not gonna get let off the gas for you to pass me. Like, I don't know. That's the part that irritated me. Is like that penalty. I hope is the last penalty of that sort that happens. Like, I don't want that to happen anymore. I want us to move past this. Oh, he said he was gonna wreck him, and he did it, right? I know. I guess that's the only line in the sand that NASCAR has. If you're gonna say you're gonna wreck somebody and you do it, we have to penalize you. And I think that if they're operating off that rule, I guess I'm okay with it. But like, if someone's gonna drive you aggressively and you have the right to get a little bit of revenge, and hopefully it doesn't actually wreck them.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it as well. I would like to see that. It's just the standard that NASCAR have set with prior calls that they have made on situations like this. They're in a box, and they have to penalize Ryan Preece. That's why I'm very mixed about it, because by the standard that NASCAR has set and the rules that they have made, whatever rules they are, that's the punishment. The punishment fits the crime. But I feel the way you do, that aggression should be allowed. Revenge or payback, obviously to a certain degree, don't get too egregious with it, should be allowed. And that's what happened. Ryan Preece ends up getting fined, and I feel like the punishment deserved the crime. But Tyler, how do we overall feel about the Ryan Preece incident with Baby Gibbs, and how would you compare it to the Kyle Busch incident with John Hunter?
I mean, it's definitely comparable in the fact that they both did it, right? But it's not comparable in the fact that NASCAR has made this very clear. Do not come on the radio and say you're going to do something like that, because if you do, we're going to give no choice but to fine you or do suspension or whatever they have to do, because they can't have people doing that. You can't have somebody plotting somebody's death on the racetrack. If you just get mad and you do it, that's one thing, right? If you get mad, you go out there, you wreck somebody, whatever, you kept it to yourself, you did what you needed to do. But if you get on the radio and you start plotting somebody's death, you can't do that. It's just not, you can't have NASCAR as one had to defend that, because you can't defend that, and then two, have fan bases using that against people for whatever reason. Like, it's just not a good look on anybody. So just go out there, wreck some boys, and call it a day. Don't tell anybody what you're about to do. We all know what's about to happen. Just do it.
Yeah, because even back in the day when we would see people wreck each other or do stuff like that, they wouldn't be so loud about it, And I think that's one of the big issues here. And I've seen it get compared to Hamlin and Chastain. Hamlin went on his podcast and said that what he did at Chastain at Phoenix was intentional, and that's where the standard was kind of set on stuff like this. If you're gonna wreck somebody or put somebody in the wall on purpose, don't say that you did it on purpose. Don't go over the radio and say, "Hey, I'm about to wreck this guy," or like, "Hey, that guy deserved that. I did that on purpose." And don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Like if you're gonna take somebody out, do what Kyle Busch did. And Kyle Busch clearly took out John Hunter Nemechek on purpose, but he never said that he did it on purpose. The way the SMT data and everything looks, it looks like he didn't do it on purpose. It looks like he potentially just slid up the racetrack, and that's what the SMT data would read. So just do stuff like that. If you're gonna take somebody out, make it seem not intentional. That's really all I could say on that. And if you make it look intentional, guess what? You're probably gonna get fined because the standard has been set. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Ryan Preece getting fined for taking out Ty Gibbs? And how would you compare it to the Kyle Busch incident with John Hunter Nemechek? Right before we finish up our Cup Series discussion, we do have to talk about our race winner, and it's the most popular driver, or at least for now, NASCAR's most popular driver, Chase Elliott, getting the win. It's a good season so far for Elliott. He's been the standout at Hendrick. What's his second win so far this season? And once again, he had to hold off Dennis the Menace, Denny Hamlin, who was on slightly fresher tires. It's pretty much the same thing we saw a couple of weeks ago at Martinsville, where Hamlin had slightly fresher tires and was coming at the end of the race and just couldn't get there. And it was the same thing here at Texas. Hamlin had the slightly fresher tires, just couldn't get there. Maybe if we had the tire fall off that I was hoping for, that I think a lot of people were hoping for, we definitely saw a little tire fall off, but not enough, in my opinion. If we saw a little bit more tire fall off, we potentially could have seen Denny Hamlin, maybe even Tyler Reddick get in the mix for the end of this race and see who could have won this race. And obviously that didn't end up happening. But Chase Elliott, NASCAR's most popular driver, gets another win. 2 wins on the year, a great start. And he also had the Prime Video paint scheme on there. Of course, we shift over to Prime Video here in a few weeks for the Summer Series of 5, and then it goes to TNT, and then it moves on to NBC/USA Network. But it's always good to see Chase, even though I'm not a fan of Chase. I think I've made that very clear. I'm not a big fan of Chase Elliott. I don't hate Chase Elliott. I just feel like you're the most popular driver. You got to show more personality, yada, yada, yada. That's my own vendetta against Chase Elliott. Taking that out of the equation, it's always good to see Chase Elliott win the race because he's NASCAR's most popular driver. So that helps with our fan base. That helps bringing more eyes to the sport because of the fan reactions, this and that. I think it's good to see Chase Elliott win races and be competing for championships, and he might be one of the championship favorites this year. I would definitely say Reddick is still the top of the totem pole, but not too far behind him is debatably Chase Elliott with already a pair of wins on the year, and obviously I would have to put Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson in that discussion as well. But Tyler, how did we feel about the end of this race? Chase Elliott just able to hold on for dear life, and Denny just wasn't quite able to get close enough to really even make a move at the end of this race.
Like you said, it's always good to see a Chase Elliott win, right? And most importantly, I think in all of this is seeing Amazon make it to victory lane, because we all need that, right? We all want Prime to take over the series full time. I don't think I've heard one NASCAR fan bitch about the Prime coverage. So if we want that, we need moments like this. We need their logo in victory lane. We need all of these things. So as long as that's happening, we're moving in the right direction. I love Chase. He was gifted to me as a fan when Jeff retired, and it's just we need more out of the man.
Yes,
We
we do.
get something, like something. I want to root for him so hard, but he is just so monotone and thanks for coming out and just I don't know. Give us something. Lose your shit a little bit. Yell at somebody. I don't know, but I love Chase. We just need more out of him.
Because I've heard that Chase is actually a pretty cool, fun guy when you really get to know him. I heard he's popular and like people like him. You know, people really like him. But when it comes to just his persona as a famous race car driver, he just doesn't really. And that's always been my problem with him. Is like you're NASCAR's most popular driver, but you don't really show your personality or your emotions. Like we don't really. I think the only time I've seen Chase Elliott really angry is with Harvick and then with Hamlin when he had those two incidents. The only time I've really seen him angry. I've never really seen him sad. The only time I've seen him like pumped up and like really happy is when he won the championship. I've never really even seen him pumped up after really winning a race. He's just usually like what you said. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. The team ran good today. Pit crew good today. Everything good today. We won. Yeah. That's he's just so bland, and that's my problem with Chase Elliott. But it's always good to see our popular guy Chase Elliott go to victory lane because it's healthy for the sport to have your superstars win races. Even though, in my opinion, he doesn't deserve that superstar moniker, if you will. But it's good for our superstars to win races like Chase Elliott. It like it was back in the day. It was always good for the sport to have a driver like Dale Earnhardt Jr. win the race, or Tony Stewart, or Jeff Gordon, because those were the superstars of our sport. And Chase Elliott is technically one of the superstars of our sport nowadays. So it's good for the health of NASCAR having a driver like Chase Elliott going to victory lane. But Cory, how did we feel about the end of this race? Hamlin just wasn't quite able to get to Elliott to really even make a move, and Elliott gets his second victory of the season.
Man, one of the things that bothers me is Chase Elliott was debatably my pick last week. I was like, nah, Ryan Blaney. And Chase Elliott dominates, and not dominates, but he had a really good car the entire race and pulled it off. And like you said, when it's the fan favorite, you can't be mad. But then on top of that, it's the fan favorite also representing Amazon Prime. And that's awesome. Like, we want to see Prime Video more. Their coverage and the amount of effort they put into the sport is second to none. So seeing them in victory lane is awesome. But at the same time, Chase Elliott has been really good to start this year. It's you can't really compare anything to Tyler Reddick right now because what he's doing is astronomical. But Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott are just easily the class of the field when you're not talking about Tyler Reddick right now. And he's easily the class of Hendrick. Like Hendrick, Kyle Larson's 90 points behind him in the standings. That's insane. And it just shows you how consistent Chase Elliott's being. So I know, like you guys said, like I wish he had more of a personality, but seeing the fan favorite be consistent and get another win, have 2 wins this early in the year, like it's awesome to see. Like I know it's a good moment for the sport. Like it's why when you see Jeff Gluck's polls be in the 70s, you're just like, oh, Chase Elliott must have won at Texas, you know? They're like, but yeah, it's good. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, it's good for the sport to have Chase Elliott in victory lane. And I do think he does have a personality. He just doesn't show it to us, you know, because he clearly has a bunch of friends in the garage and he's very popular within the garage. I don't know of any drivers that really dislike him or hate him. I think he's pretty well liked. He just doesn't. I don't know if it's because he just doesn't want to, or if he's nervous or something. He just doesn't show any personality when he's on camera or in front of a microphone. Unfortunately, because if he had hosts of our type of personality, he would be insanely popular. We would probably double, triple in viewers, to be honest, because Chase Elliott has that much personality. To be honest, I think he could do that if he had that much personality. But nonetheless, it's great to see one of our superstars, Chase Elliott, go to victory lane, and overall just finished off a great weekend with a popular win, I would say. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Chase Elliott getting his second win of the season? And very similar to Martinsville, had to hold off Denny Hamlin to do it. All right. Before we talk about Watkins Glen, because we will have our thoughts on Watkins Glen, I'll also go through the schedule and the facts. We do have one news story that I want to talk about, and it's a little more nuanced, I would say, and that is Carson Hocevar attended the Met Gala yesterday. I saw some pictures of him in a suit, and it's like Hocevar at the Met Gala. I thought it was just a meme at first. I thought it was just like them taking a picture of Hocevar all dressed up, and it's the day of the Met Gala. I was like, hey, look, Hocevar's. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke at first, and I looked around and I saw videos of Hocevar doing interviews on the E network, Entertainment Weekly or whatever. I can't believe it. That's crazy. There hasn't been a NASCAR driver that has attended Met Gala since Jeff Gordon. That's the last driver that attended it, and I don't think a single driver attended it before Jeff Gordon. So Jeff Gordon would be the only one that's ever done it. I'm not sure exactly what year that was that he attended it. I assumed it was probably in the 90s at some point. So it's probably been around 30 years since a NASCAR driver has attended the Met Gala. Some of you that tuned into last week's episode of Hit the Pacecar, we did have a discussion where is Carson Hocevar the most popular driver in the sport right now? Could he potentially dethrone Chase Elliott of being NASCAR's most popular driver? Tyler seems to think so. Cory seems to be leaning that way as well. I did have a lot of pushback to that, and I'm going to change my tone a little bit on this situation. I do still think it's Chase Elliott, but if Carson Hocevar continues to do things like this, where he's getting infused with our United States pop culture that we have, I think he could become NASCAR's most popular driver. I think it is a possibility. He needs to continue to put himself out there, continue to show his personality, continue to win races and compete for wins, and maybe even compete for a cup championship in the near future. If he continues to do these things and he continues on this trajectory that he's on, I definitely think he can be NASCAR's most popular driver. I would still lean to the fact that I still think that it's Elliott at the moment, but if Hocevar continues what he's doing, I do think he has the potential to be NASCAR's most popular driver. And I said it last week, I think already at this point, Hocevar is the most popular driver outside of the NASCAR bubble. Like, people that don't watch NASCAR, the most likely driver that they'll know, other than maybe like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin, but that's just because they've been so great for so long, and they were also winning races when NASCAR was way more popular than it is now. But other than maybe those two guys, maybe even Brad Kay, you could maybe even throw in that as well. Hocevar is the most known driver outside of our NASCAR bubble. And Hocevar has the potential to become NASCAR's most popular driver. And I personally never thought I would even say that anybody could potentially be NASCAR's most popular driver over Chase Elliott, especially after Larson ended up joining Hendrick. Because when Larson joined Hendrick, when I went to Phoenix that year and he won the championship, I have never seen, I saw like 20 times more Larson gear than I saw Chase Elliott gear, because Larson was tearing it up. He had a personality. He was always racing. People loved him. So the fact that Larson couldn't beat Chase Elliott to be NASCAR's most popular driver back in 2021, I personally thought there was no chance that anybody would beat Chase Elliott. But here we are, and I'm admitting to the fact that maybe Hocevar can become NASCAR's most popular driver if he continues to do what he's doing. I guess I'll start with Tyler, because Tyler, I feel like was the most passionate about this, and at the end of this, he could be right. It depends on where he goes from here. I thought it was awesome that he attended the Met Gala. I loved his responses on the red carpet or whatever, talking about his racing. Obviously, he shot his shot on Sabrina Carpenter. William Byron walked so he could run. Obviously, William Byron took his shot on Sabrina Carpenter. I don't think Sabrina Carpenter even saw it, but I assume Sabrina Carpenter probably saw Hocevar talking about this. That would be crazy for our sport if he started dating her. I doubt it would ever happen, but that would be pretty dope. That'd be pretty dope. But Tyler, how do we feel about, obviously, Hocevar's popularity, but also how do we feel about him attending the Met Gala, not a place you would expect a NASCAR driver to attend?
Oh, the man's on a roll. Like, he seems to be comfortable no matter where he's at, no matter what he's wearing, no matter who he's with. So it's cool to see. We haven't seen this since 2008 with Jeff Gordon, and Jeff Gordon was doing these things. I mean, he was on for years on different talk shows and still
Yeah,
never made most popular driver over
that's true.
Dale
That's
Jr.
true.
So it definitely takes more than just being known, right? It takes personality and all these things, and I think that's what's kind of gonna set Carson from Chase is that he has personality. He has these things. He's bringing these fans back from the late 90s and the early 2000s that haven't watched in years because nobody's exciting. Like, he has those capabilities, and as long as he stays being him, it's definitely possible. I think it was awesome to see him on the red carpet, to see him out in that world. I'm not a fan of any of that kind of crap, but it's cool to see that he's getting involved with it because, like you said, our sport needs it. The more eyes, the better. So, he's not doing anything wrong, in my opinion. He's killing it where he can, and that's what's going to make him the top guy.
I'd say the only note like I'd have for Hostvar when it came to that Met Gala, and it's probably not his call per se, but they should have had him wear something more flashy or something. I wouldn't say what his suit was that he was wearing was bad. It was a nice suit. He had the bow tie and everything, but it's not flashy at all. And you don't necessarily need to be flashy at Met Gala, but I haven't seen a lot of people outside of the NASCAR bubble talking about Hocevar being at the Met Gala. Obviously, I talked earlier about how Pat McAfee mentioned that he was at the Met Gala, but maybe if he showed up wearing like an all black suit with like red chili peppers all over it or something like that. I don't know, like something a little more flashy, like some embroidered chili peppers in the suit or something like that. I think that would have garnered maybe a little bit more attention, and included in that attention would have been Sabrina Carpenter, Carson. So you should have wore a better suit. It was still a very great suit, though. I just feel like he should have been a little bit more flashy. But that's just me nitpicking on it. But still, nonetheless, it's cool to see a driver outside of our NASCAR bubble, and not just standing outside the bubble. This is like on the other side of the like. I would never expect a NASCAR driver to be at Met Gala. That's not a place I would ever expect any NASCAR driver to ever be at, and he was there. He was there. But Cory, how do we feel about Hocevar making an appearance at the Met Gala?
I mean, it's awesome for the sport. I feel like it's just promotion for the sport and promotion for Carson. Like, anybody who attended the Met Gala probably didn't know who Carson Hocevar was, and then
No.
now they're like, oh, it's a NASCAR driver, you know? But yeah, it's good for him to get his name around. Like, we talked about most popular driver, and if we go based off deserving, Carson Hocevar should be in that conversation. Maybe not this year, but next year. And as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, having the burnouts, making his burnouts show his heart and how much he loves the sport, hanging out with fans, going to the Met Gala, as long as he keeps being him, he's going to be talked about and he's going to be in that conversation.
Yeah, he just needs to keep on doing what he's doing. And I've said it before, Carson Hocevar is a sponsor's wet dream. That's like the best way I can describe him, because he's so great at promoting his sponsors. He has such a great personality. And on top of that, he's also a fantastic race car driver who's competing for wins almost every week at this point, and potentially could be competing for the championship. Maybe not this year, but I do think I do think he will be competing for a championship in the near future, and potentially could be NASCAR's most popular driver in the near future. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Carson Hocevar attending the Met Gala? And do you think there is a true possibility of Carson Hocevar becoming NASCAR's most popular driver over Chase Elliott? Okay. That will have us actually move on to our weekend preview for Watkins Glen International. So now I'll go through the weekend schedule for Watkins Glen, the weekend facts, the weather, and of course, naming a couple notable entries for the weekend. So first on Friday at 11 a.m., we have Craftsman Truck Series practice on Fox Sports 2, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 1:30 p.m., also on Fox Sports 2, we have the ARCA Menard Series racing at Watkins Glen in the General Tire 100. And then at 4:30 p.m., we have the Bully Hill Vineyards 176, the Craftsman Truck Series race, and that will be on Fox Sports 1. And then we look ahead to Saturday at 10:30 a.m. We have the O'Reilly Series practice on the CW app, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 1 p.m., we have Cup Series practice on Prime Video, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 4 p.m., we have the Mission 200, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. And of course, that is on the CW. And then we look to Sunday at 3 p.m. We have the Go Bowling at the Glen on Fox Sports 1, the NASCAR Cup Series race at Watkins Glen International. And then to go through the facts, it's the Go Bowling at the Glen. The stages end at lap 20 for stage 1, lap 50 for stage 2, and it is a 100-lap event. The track is located in Watkins Glen, New York. It is a 2.45-mile road course. It opened up a long time ago, back in 1956, and that first Cup race was won in 1957 on August 4th by Buck Baker, of course, the father of Buddy Baker. The active win leader is actually tied between three different drivers. Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson all have 2 victories at Watkins Glen. And then, of course, last year's winner was SVG Shane Van Gisbergen. Then the notable entries for the weekend, once again, the trucks. Just every single time the trucks are out here, they get a fantastic entry list together. We have Brent Cruz and Adam Andretti both racing for Tricon Garage this weekend in the number 1 for Cruz, the number 5 for Andretti. We have Shane Van Gisbergen driving the number 4 this upcoming weekend for Nice. In the number 7 for Spire Motorsports, we have Connor Mozak racing this weekend. We have Tony Breidinger making another start this weekend in the number 20. We also have Natalie Decker in the number 22. We have AJ Allmendinger making his first Truck Series start of the year with the Colleague Ram program, driving the number 25. We have Ross Chastain in the 45. And then we have Connor Zilic in the 71 and Carson Hocevar in the 77, both for Spire Motorsports. And then we look at the O'Reilly Series as we have Connor Zilic and SVG doing the triple this weekend. Both of those cars are for Junior Motorsports. Zilic in the number 1 and SVG in the number 9. And then Chastain is also going for the triple, driving the number 32 on Saturday for Jordan Anderson Racing, which will have Carson Quaffle move over to the 91 because of Zilic being in the number 1. And then in the Cup Series, in the number 66, we have Josh Balicki. And then in the 78, we have Catherine Legg. And then, honestly, rain's going to be a threat throughout the whole entire weekend. If you're watching, I assume you're probably watching this on Friday. Potential AM showers, around a 60% chance of rain. The temperatures are going to be anywhere between 40 degrees and 60 degrees all weekend. Each day, I feel like it's going to be very similar. We'll have to see how the rain ends up being throughout the weekend. Now that we've gone through the schedule, the facts, the weather, the notable entries, and all that, let's give our brief thoughts on Watkins Glen International. I'll start with this one. Watkins Glen is probably my favorite road course currently on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I am aware that the racing hasn't been the greatest in this generation of car at Watkins Glen. I truly think that's because of just the high speeds. Watkins Glen's a lot faster than the other road courses, a lot simpler of a road course, if that makes sense. It's a lot simpler, not as difficult corners. I think everybody has, I would say it's the easiest road course we go to, so everybody has more of a handle on the racetrack. So it makes it a lot more difficult to separate yourself from the field. Obviously, there's going to be a couple of separators, and we'll obviously talk about them in our weekly picks, Connor Zilic and SVG, because I assume both of them are going to get taken off the board for this week. But nonetheless, I really like Watkins Glen International. I'm hoping they're able to figure it out when it comes to these cars at that racetrack, because I think it's a great racetrack. I do expect the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series to put on a very good show this weekend. I am a little bit worried about the Cup Series race as a whole, but nonetheless, I've been to Watkins Glen twice. As a kid, one of the years I went, Kevin Harvick won at Watkins Glen. I think it was his only road course win in his entire career, and I was there for that. And then the next year, I sat in turn 1, which was the hot spot to sit at that year, because we had Juan Pablo Montoya fight Kevin Harvick. Juan Pablo Montoya fights Kevin Harvick. You had Jeff Burton separating the fight. Then, of course, you had Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon battling at the end of this race, and Jeff Gordon choked hard, spun himself out in turn one, and Tony Stewart drove past him and led the last 2 or 3 laps, ended up taking the dub there at Watkins Glen International. Every race I've been to, I've never seen Jeff Gordon win in person, and obviously I never will, but that would have been my opportunity to see Jeff Gordon win in person, and he choked it away, and I'll always remember that. So I definitely have a soft spot for Watkins Glen International, and I'm excited for them to go there this weekend. I want to get the Pacecar boys' thoughts on this, starting with the Jeff Gordon fan of Tyler. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Watkins Glen International, and what could we maybe expect this weekend?
Watkins Glen should be good, man. Watkins is always a great road race. I mean, it's one of the best in my opinion, and it's put on one of the most aggressive racing when it comes to road racing in the past years. So we should have some good racing this weekend for sure.
That's one thing I'll definitely agree with when it comes to Watkins Glen over the last couple of years, because I think with the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series, it always puts on a good show. I would say the Cup race over the last couple of years hasn't been all that great, but I will agree with the point that we do see a good amount of aggression at Watkins Glen in the Cup Series, because, like I said before, the way this track is, and with this generation of car, it's such a fast road course. It's a lot faster paced. Plus, a lot of these drivers have a lot of experience at this racetrack, and I would consider it the easiest road course to race as a driver on our schedule as well. So with all those factors, it's made it kind of difficult to move through the field, kind of difficult to make passes. But with the difficulty to do that stuff comes aggression, because then you get frustrated that you can't make passes. So I would agree with that sentiment that it is a very aggressive racetrack. We could see beating and banging throughout the day. We could see some drama maybe at Watkins Glen this weekend in the Cup Series race. It would not surprise me one bit, especially going into turn one, because turn one, I feel like we always see something crazy happen there when we go to Watkins Glen. But Cory, what are your thoughts on Watkins Glen International, and what do you potentially expect from this weekend's Cup Series race?
I think it'll be a great race. I think Tyler said the perfect word, that it's like the most aggressive racing we get on road courses. I also think it's the most scenic race we have on the schedule. That race is always like beautiful aesthetically. Like, it's just a great, I know, race to see visually. And I looking forward to it. I think Sonoma would be up there aesthetically if we didn't race during the summer, but
Yeah,
I'm
agreed.
excited for Watkins Glen, and I'm interested to see what the track limits do in turn one.
Yeah, from someone that's been to Watkins Glen, it is a very beautiful racetrack. It's surrounded very beautifully. It's very interesting because you have the Watkins Glen State Park that's right there. So when you're driving up to Watkins Glen International, you're pretty much just a little hiccup there. You're pretty much driving through forest and the woods and stuff, and you're just like, where the hell is this racetrack? And then boom, big racetrack. You just all of a sudden pull up, and it's like all of a sudden you're in like this big empty field, and right in front of that empty field is a big ass racetrack. So it's nice. I've always wanted to camp there. I want to go to Watkins Glen again just to camp at that racetrack. I heard it's a really fun time to camp at that racetrack, and road courses are a little bit different because the way the camping situation at Watkins Glen, especially, I've camped at Coda. Coda's a lot different compared to a lot of other road courses. I've camped at Sonoma as well. It's very different as well from Watkins Glen, because at those racetracks you can't really camp inside the racetrack. You're camping outside. Watkins Glen, you can camp right up against what's it called? I'm having a brain fart. What's that? What are the turns on the not the dog leg? What is it called? Not the dog leg. Help me out here. What is it called? On the back straightaway, if you will. The 2 or 3 turns right there.
The chicane?
Chicane. Yeah, I was at a blank on words right there. But yeah, that backstretch chicane, if you will, at Watkins Glen International, like some campers are literally posted up right up against the wall right there, and that's not necessarily premium camping. There's camping throughout that entire area, coming from someone that's walked around Watkins Glen, walked around the entire racetrack, and it's great. It's a great racetrack. It's a wonderful place. I really hope I hope I hope what y'all are saying is true. I'm probably the negative one out of the bunch when it comes to the Cup Series race this weekend. It seems like both Cory and Tyler are really looking forward to the race. I wouldn't say I'm not looking forward to the race. I just don't have very high expectations personally. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Watkins Glen International, and what do you expect from the upcoming weekend in New York? All right. Now that we are done with all of that, it's time to get into our finisher for the show, and that, of course, is our weekly picks and update our standings. Tyler, I don't know what's going on with Tyler. Tyler last year didn't get a single DNF. He still doesn't have a DNF this year, but last year he maintained a great average finish all year and hardly had any even semi-bad finishes. Like a bad finish for Tyler when it came to picks was like 15th. Well, these last 2 weeks have been potentially his worst finishes in the history of weekly picks. And it's in back-to-back weeks. When you're hot, you're hot. When you're cold, you're cold. And Tyler ended up finishing third in our weekly race, and he got only a single point. So he goes from 33 points to 34 points. Cory looked like he was going to be in the same boat. Ryan Blaney figured it out throughout the race and actually squeezed in a top 10 finish at the end of this race, which gave him the extra bonus point plus the 2 points for finishing second, giving him 3 points total for the week. So that moves him from 32 points to 35 points on the season. And I ended up getting 5 points because I had the weekly win with Chris Buescher, giving me 3 points, and a 5th place finish from Chris Buescher gives me 2 bonus points for the top 5, so 5 points for the week. Both me and Cory used our Hail Mary bonus. Cory decided to pick Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric wasn't even really a threat to get the top 10 all day, wasn't even really a top 20 car throughout a good portion of the day as well. Very tough day for Austin Cindric. Corey Heim was my Hail Mary pick. I felt like he had a top 10 car and at one point was leading the race, led a good amount of laps in this race. Obviously, he wrecked out and didn't get the finish he probably deserved, and I could have potentially gotten some bonus points from that, but both of us used our Hail Mary bonus, and both of them got wasted. And this week for Watkins Glen, since it is a road course, Tyler cannot use his Hail Mary bonus this week, but maybe he could use it at Nashville or Michigan or Pocono within the upcoming weeks. So no Hail Mary bonus this week, but I got the 5 points. I'm at 42 points. So to go over our points one more time, I have 42, Cory has 35, Tyler has 34 heading in to Watkins Glen. So with the way the points are structured, Tyler would get the first pick, Cory gets the second pick, and I will pick last. So I know these two are going to pick Zilich and SVG. It's just the question is, which one does Tyler take? So Tyler, who is it going to be? SVG, Zilich, or are you going to surprise me? Oh, he's going to pick the Kiwi, it looks like.
There ain't no surprises. Give me the Kiwi. Last year I got screwed out of him every single time. Give me the damn
Frickin'
Kiwi.
Cory. Cory took SVG.
Freaking Cory.
Cory took SVG every time last year because he always wound up with the first pick at the perfect time, and it's like, oh, SVG, oh, SVG, oh. Yeah. Cory, how many times did you end up taking SVG last year? I think 3 times, maybe, or 4 times.
It was 4.
4 times?
4.
Yeah, see? he got SVG.
And he won 3 times.
He won 3 of those 4 times. So SVG was the savior for him last year. Ended up winning him the championship last year in our weekly picks. We have to rename it the Kiwi Trophy or something like that, because that's pretty much what Cory won with SVG helping him so much last year. So with Tyler picking Shane Van Gisbergen, the driver of the number 97 of Trackhouse Racing, I would assume Cory is probably taking the driver of the number 88 for Trackhouse Racing, Connor Zilich. But Cory, is that your pick, or are you going to surprise us?
Hell no, I'm not surprising you. From breaking his collarbone to winning his first race at Watkins Glen. Let's go.
All right. So there you have it. Cory decides to pick the driver of the number 88, Connor Zilich, to win at Watkins Glen International. And I've been kind of jumping around on who I want to pick here. And I kind of, not really, but I would like to take Chris Buescher, but I did take Chris Buescher last week, so obviously I can't take Chris Buescher, but I think he would be a really good pick. I think any of the Hendrick boys would probably be a very good pick as well. but I'm going to go with the safe pick. These two guys are probably going to finish in the top 5. I have a huge points lead. I don't think they're, well, not huge, but I have a decent points lead, I should say. So I don't think I should take any big risks. So I'm going to go with probably the boring pick here, but I'm going to take him. He's going to be driving in the Truck Series race for Ram this weekend. I'm going to pick the driver of the number 16 for Colleague Racing, and that is the Dinger. AJ Allmendinger is my pick to win at Watkins Glen. And like I said before, me and Cory have both taken our Hail Mary bonus picks, and Hail Mary bonus picks cannot be used on road courses, so Tyler cannot use his Hail Mary bonus pick this week. So to go through our picks one more time, Tyler has picked the driver of the number 97 SVG, the Kiwi, Shane Van Gisbergen. And then Cory has decided to pick the driver of the number 88, Connor Zilic, to get his first career Cup Series win, little less than a year after breaking his collarbone falling off a car at Watkins Glen in the O'Reilly Series race. And then I have decided to pick the Dinger, the driver of the number 16 for Colleague Racing, AJ Allmendinger. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who is your pick to win the Cup Series race this weekend at the Glen? And that will actually do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pace Car. I'm going to send it to the boys for last word, and then we're going to be out of here. Tyler, anything you got to say to the people before we head out?
Ride that Dente, baby. Keep it rolling.
Ride the Dente. Cory, is there anything you want to tell the people before we head out?
Watch out for the Zilic 3-peat this weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. The Zillbillies will be really happy about that, so I'll be hyped. I'll be wearing all my Zilic stuff on Sunday, on Friday, on Saturday. I'm going to be wearing all my Zilic stuff. The Zillbillies are going to be running strong this weekend, hopefully. And, well, so that will do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pace Car. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, we would appreciate a like, comment, follow, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. But for now, I'm Trackside Larry, they're the Pace Car Boys, and we're saying peace.